This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Pittsburgh to Scranton, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow for the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by our chairman, Ed Arnold, for an Arnold Report. And we are looking for your questions, and we hope that you will continue to submit your questions into our program. And the address that you send them at, the email, is at the bottom of the screen. And we will submit them to Mr. Arnold, and you can tune in for his answers. So, welcome. How was your holiday season, Ed?
Very nice, very good.
Good. Well, it's good to have you back.
Good.
Well, we have some new questions that our viewers have submitted, and of course, China is on the news all the time, and in a growing awareness of their status in the world. And our first viewer writes to us, while many observers talk about China's growing power, there are many observers who are currently talking about the major weaknesses in the Chinese economy. What are these weaknesses, and is Chinese economic power overstated?
Okay, well, basically, first of all, their weaknesses basically is like almost a lot of governments in the world, is their financials. There is tremendous debt, especially they have a very weak local system. Their local systems, the government has encouraged to grow, and they've grown primarily to selling land, because they had a lot of land to sell. Well, now, of course, their development and their growth of construction has slowed down drastically. In fact, it's had some major potential bankruptcies, and some bankruptcies, actually, of their builders. So therefore, that at this point, their finances of their local governments are very bad, and their debt structure is extremely high. So therefore, that is probably their weakness, as is ours, since we are also in a sustainable debt situation too. Their strength is substantial. They do control so many of the world's key important metals and also important products. Obviously, 7 of the 10 major things to make electric batteries, cobalt being the one that comes to the top, are controlled by China. They overwhelmingly control the market. Also, medical supplies in the world today, either the components or the whole product or whatever, is again overwhelmingly. So there's so many industries that China dominates, because our corporate America says we can save a few pennies, so we go to China. And our government base has encouraged them over the years.
Mm-hmm. So does China have a overall plan in place, you think, to try to become the world's preeminent economy that's handled by the government and directed by the government?
They have more
over
than
years?
that. They plan to take over the world, and they're going to do it. They're doing a very good job at it right now. Mm-hmm. They have basically more and more their Belt Highway thing has connected China to the world. Most countries, their number one trading partner is China. China is very, very dominant because of the pure size.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another viewer writes in to ask you, the attractiveness of bonds as an investment has been discussed on your show before. Are we now at a point in our economy and our finances when bonds are a good investment with the increase in interest rates?
The answer is yes, bonds are a good investment in my opinion. I think interest rates have probably peaked. Again, assuming inflation is still going to be high, and we're not going to see the low interest rates we've seen in the past. But overall, that especially government bonds, which are secure, I would be somewhat questionable of a lot of your corporate bonds, especially your lower risk companies, because the corporations have gone into a tremendous amount of debt, and that debt is going to recycle into higher interest rates, which could cause some major problems. So basically, when I say bonds are a good investment, I'm primarily talking about government bonds.
Mm-hmm. Well, another viewer writes in and is touching on something that, asking about something you just touched on, and if you could be absolutely clear about it for our viewers. In this new year of 2024, will interest rates continue to climb, or will they begin a steady decline?
We've already addressed it. The answer is they'll probably have capped. They will not go up anymore. They're probably going to go down.
Okay. Another viewer asks, here's some of our people who are interested in cyber currency, why is Bitcoin and cyber currency beginning to drop in price? what is changing in the cyber currency investing environment?
Well, first of all, cyber currency is volatile. It goes up, it goes down. But one of the things that actually is a very positive trend for cyber currency is their new lows are always higher than their old lows. I mean, to take it a simple fact, this year, yes, in the last 12 months, it was 17,000, but it's also recently been 48,000. Presently, it's around 43,000. The overall, in the history of the thing, in the last 4 years, cyber cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, when you say cryptocurrency, we're talking about Bitcoins, is half the total value of all cryptocurrencies, half is Bitcoins. It was the last 4 years was a low of 4,000 and a high of 60,000. So basically, over the years since it's become available, it's going up. And the probability, since our dollar is being basically under tremendous pressure, and the one thing about Bitcoins is, because of the mathematical formula, it can only be so many coins. I think it's 121 million. And we're 90% there out there now. So they're actually, you cannot dilute Bitcoins where you can dilute the dollar by just keep printing money.
Well, something related to this, you have in the past, as cyber currency has come into the public awareness, you've done some shows with us where you've talked about all the different types of cyber currency besides just Bitcoin. And I guess some of our viewers are also interested, I'm interested in, are the alternative cyber currencies, alternative to Bitcoin, do they continue to proliferate, or has that stabilized? And is there just a sort of stable number of cyber currencies out there?
No, it is amazing. Now, I don't quite understand why there's literally thousands of cryptocurrencies, but the top 10 are substantial. And in fact, one of the things now is the government has just approved in the last 2 weeks ETFs, exchange traded funds, so that the average person now can easier buy cryptocurrency. And that will be a basket of cryptocurrencies, which will be Ethereum and Xeon, and there's a whole.
And you'll do that through your stockbroker, Ed?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Because it's an ETF. The ETFs are traded everywhere.
This is quite an interesting new idea.
Yeah, ironically, it's that old saying: you buy on the rumor and you sell on the fact that it went up from 16,000, 18,000 all the way up to 48,000. When the actual approval 2 weeks ago, it then dropped about 10,000 points. So therefore, it obviously when the actual happened, people who made all the money when it went up now sold. But anyway, it's coming back again. But basically, the other thing is also happening right now in crypto is a thing called halving. This is only Bitcoins. Bitcoins every 4 years, as you're mining, you get less coins. Well, right now you get 7 coins when you mine Bitcoins. It's going to be down to 3.5. And of course, previously it was 14 and so on. So basically, that's another event. I don't think it's as big a deal because 90% of the Bitcoins have already been mined, and therefore the mining of Bitcoins has become less and less relevant. In the case of Ethereum, it's unlimited amount they can do it, and there's no mining process. It's a very non-energy process, very simple.
So you buy on the rumor and you sell on the fact.
Yes.
I had not heard that before.
That's an old saying, and it does a lot of times seem to work.
Uh-huh. Well, again, continuing along the line of Bitcoins, one viewer wants to know what can be done to reduce the amount of water that's needed for Bitcoin mining. I never knew that there was a need for a lot of water, but apparently the process does take some.
Well, the process doesn't really, but you're using, again, computer power. Computers generate heat. And they have to be cooled, and there's no real form to cool is water. So yes, we do use a tremendous amount, but again, back to my thing is, I think there's going to be less mining in the future. Of all our concerns about our use of water, I don't think this is going to be a big one.
Okay. Well, another viewer would like to know, how can businesses help to stop the increasing, well, you know what, let's take a break right here. I think this would be a good place to take a break. So we'll be right back with the second part of the Arnold Report and Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Welcome back to Behind the Headlines, and we are in the middle of an Arnold report with Mr. Ed Arnold, who is our chairman of the board and who is one of the most veteran businessmen in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, having directed the fortunes of Arnold Trucking,
and New Penn.
Arnold Industries and New Penn for many, many years, and it's made it one of the two of the best trucking companies in the nation. So we're lucky to have your insights, Ed. Wanted to pick up with our viewers' questions, and the next question is, how can businesses help to stop the increasing movement to indoctrination in higher education and restore classical and technical education curricula? This is really hot now that we've had those 3 college presidents being grilled before Congress. Well, of course, that was about anti-Semitism, but it brings into focus the whole idea of this fear of indoctrination occurring in higher
Really,
ed.
it's actually, since we are a democracy, or a republic, actually, but it's through elected officials. Obviously, school boards are, at this point, extremely woke, and therefore, the answer is we've never put much attention on the importance of school board directors and therefore the direction of our schools, and just generally our politicians. The Department of Education is extremely basically a brainwash organization. Our schools no longer want to teach the reading, writing, and arithmetic. They want to teach social justice. Mm-hmm. So therefore, basically, it's to get people in positions of authority, which through elections, that obviously want to go back to teaching about America and basic education. Our system is collapsing. We in the world are continuing to have more and more that our rankings in math and science are very weak.
Mm-hmm. Well, the next viewer wants to know, could you explain Microsoft's recent drive to move to nuclear power so that its ventures in AI have enough power to work? Why does AI require so much energy, and how will that work when our nation is stretched for energy now?
Well, it's sort of interesting that I'm going to sort of also talk about our energy and our government's push or what they want to accomplish. But basically, obviously, AI is involved in computers. It's massive, massive data. I mean, literally trillion bytes or something and so on. And this requires tremendous computer power. And again, computers generate heat, the electricity, and so on. So therefore, that really, it's actually not quantitatively the best, but this to start up this chat box is equivalent to 123 cars for a whole year of the gasoline. That's how much just to start it. The thing at the same time, Google, more and more of your search engine, you will be using the chat box as opposed to the regular Google, which again will be using it's going to search all over the world for information. That takes energy. And of course, that's the thing is, here we are, pretty much we agree, I think, that our future energy needs are going to increase because we want electric homes, we want electric cars, we want everything electric. That's going to take a lot more power. It seems that our politicians don't realize that power does not come from heaven, and they don't even believe in heaven, so that we didn't worry about that. But basically, that right now, your natural gas is 40% of our electric, coal is 20% of our electric, and nuclear is 20%. So all the alternatives, and that 7% is hydro, which we're not going to build anymore. So 13% of our electric is coming from things they want to expand. when it's going to have to increase by 20-30% because of everything going to become electric. So really, we're not connecting the dots. We want more electricity, but we want to eliminate more than 50%, actually 60% of our present generating power, which makes no sense. And plus, in fact, to build new nuclear, we have so much regulation and so many restrictions that it would take many, many, many years to build nuclear power plants.
Yet we have a whole new generation of nuclear power plants that don't have nuclear rods to dispose of and are incredibly safe, and the public
Are
just
also
has to...
experimental and have not been proven yet to
Oh,
function.
I think that we're
We're
well
still
on
a
the
distance away. Well, let's put it this way. Gates has been trying to get one put in an old power plant, and even he hasn't been able to get through the regulations.
Again, the regulations, yes, which are geared towards the older generation of nuclear power plants. But the interesting thing that we've heard just in the last year is that to power AI in next year, it will take up 20% of our entire energy.
Well,
20% of the total energy in
yeah.
America will go to AI, and yet we're dismantling other electric generating facilities. That doesn't seem to add up, does it?
No, well, that's why they want to get rid of 20% by getting rid of coal, which provides 20%, which is also very reliable.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be in for some, perhaps some brownouts in the future.
Yes, maybe even blackouts.
Yeah, hope not, but it's very possible. Well, this viewer wants to ask you something else that's very much in the news at the present time. What's the current cost, if you can come up with one? What is the current cost of unlimited illegal immigration to the American public? Why isn't this being discussed and this number focused on in the District of Columbia?
Well, actually, there's two costs. Number one, first of all, the actual cost of providing free everything, and that seems to be our philosophy. I didn't realize until talking to somebody recently that we give them cell phones, and we're giving them, obviously, their boarding, we give them this and that and so on. But it's what New York City is complaining they need and what Chicago complains they need. It could be, if you put it all together, $1 trillion in the country. It's astronomically expensive. But there's a second part. It's tearing our school systems apart because you're putting in all these people that don't speak English, so now you're a way more expensive education. Our healthcare system's being overwhelmed because, again, they're giving all free healthcare. So basically, overall, we're changing all of our things that we need, that we provide to our citizens. And one of the things right now is they're robbing from the VA to pay for a lot of these systems for the immigrants. So overall, we have not, again, we're just bringing in, and now at this point, as you probably see in the news, 300,000 came in the last month. Doesn't include the hundreds of thousands of getaways and the illegals that are coming in that we can't stop. That basically, it's unsustainable, and we must address it. We have the laws. We keep saying we got to pass laws. We don't have to pass laws. The president has to enforce the laws.
Yes.
And at this point, the good news is that even though the Supreme Court said they can technically stop, let's say, cut the barbed wire from Texas, it didn't say Texas can't put up barbed wire. It's just that the federal government, and at this point, I'm told that the federal people on the ground are not cutting the barbed wire. They've ignored our incompetent president.
Well, the interesting thing is that during this president's administration, we have as many illegal immigrants as equal the population of either Michigan, Georgia, or North Carolina. So we have brought in a whole state. The whole state of Georgia has been brought in the last 3.5 years.
And we're also bringing in disease because we absolutely do not check.
Yeah, we don't
People
know.
just walk in. There's no. Or Ellis Island, they actually got people that were healthy. We are now saying we don't care. We want to take your healthy and your illiterate of the world. And this is, of course, it's just unsustainable.
Well, the former officials with the CIA and the former officials with the previous administrations are concerned about terrorism, and the prospect for future terrorism is being increased because of so many young males coming in from all over the world, and we have no idea where they're coming from, and we don't have any way of keeping track of them, and they disappear, and we have no idea who they are.
Plus, of course, we also know drugs are pouring in now. That you don't have to build tunnels anymore. You can walk right across the river.
That's very true, Ed. Well, will there ever be a final state budget? Whose fault is it that we don't have a state budget yet? And what problem is this producing for our state's economy?
I don't know that it's that big a deal. I'm not so sure they can ever audit our budget anyway. So when they say but we know Pennsylvania creates a budget, and the budget said it must be balanced, yet we have deficits. Well, the point is they never readjust the budget later on. It passes theoretically balanced, but it never ends up being balanced. So really, the budget we'll continue to spend as we have the year before. It's not that big a deal, and obviously it's again back to getting our government to be responsible, which the government, specifically what you're telling me what they want to do in the state schools, they don't care about cost. Our governor specifically.
Well, first, I guess we have to repair the roof of the State House so they can actually meet.
Yes, that's what you tell me, yes.
That will be interesting in the next month or so. Well, another viewer asks you a subjective question. Should the state's minimum wage be raised?
Obviously, the answer is yes. It is right now. It's almost we could double it, probably, and it would have very little effect because I'm under the impression that the number of jobs anymore are at $15 an hour is not that unusual, at least $12 an hour. So that it's basically, it should be at least raised to 12 because it's the real world. And as I say, it could even be higher.
Okay. And another viewer would like to know, how is onshoring going for Pennsylvania corporations and businesses? This means bringing back jobs and businesses that have moved overseas in the past. How is onshore going for Pennsylvania?
Well, very frankly, I must admit I could not find any such factual information. I personally don't know of any particular major projects that have helped Pennsylvania. So onshoring has, obviously there's some major tech plants are being built, but I don't know of any being built here. So I don't think it's affected Pennsylvania that much.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
All right. Well, going along the same line, someone else would like to know if Warren Buffett has changed his investing philosophy in the last year.
He has changed his philosophy, but he still owns a tremendous number of stocks he's owned for many years. He tends to buy and hold, and therefore his portfolio is still heavily in, as he says, stocks that I can understand. And he doesn't necessarily understand this complicated technology. He has changed somewhat. He has done little things, but overall, he's still very heavy value oriented.
Is he ever going to retire, Ed?
I think he'll die when he retires. As you know, his right-hand man, Munger, did die. So therefore, but he was a few years old. I believe Buffett is about 90. He was a couple years older.
Mm-hmm. Well, so much of the business community looks to him for clues on where the economy is going. And this viewer wants to know from you where the economy is going. How will 2024 differ from 2023 in terms of investing?
Very frankly, it's a very volatile economy. It'll continue to be volatile. The market, obviously, at this point appears to be very positive. But the one thing you got to realize is we now have the magical 7 or whatever they want to call them, because really last year the market was up supposedly 20%, but really the overall market, if you took out the magic 7, was only up like 3, 4, 5%. So really the Fortune 500 is the Fortune 7. It's not 500, it's 7.
But we have to stop here and we have to ask you, what is the magic 7?
Well, that's Microsoft, Tesla, Google, Facebook, and the technology companies.
Okay, the technology companies. Okay. So could you repeat that for at least for me, how will 2024 differ from 2023 in investing?
Basically, I'm going to say I don't think it'll do as well. I think it'll be very volatile. The thing that our market and eventually could have an effect on it is it seems to ignore world events. Well, obviously there's a lot of things going on in the world, and that well, just a simple one right now, transportation costs are going to go up. The Panama Canal, because of lack of rainfall, their dams are getting very low, and they're down to like 20% of the capacity that they had because they don't have enough water. Well, the other thing, of course, the other major waterway in the world, so now you're going to have to go around, or you're either going to have to rail across the country, or you're going to have to go around South America. And of course, the other major thing is your Suez Canal is now being drastically restricted because of the Yemen rebels are firing rockets, and therefore it's not safe for commercial transportation. So both those things, we keep saying inflation is going to come down. Well, the average labor settlement, specifically auto workers, was astronomically high, and there's some other ones now. That labor costs are still going up. We're not getting more efficient anymore, particularly. So that overall, and now transportation costs, and a lot of your transportation is world shipping, is going to definitely increase substantially.
Mm-hmm. Well, this viewer would like to know that Argentina has adopted the dollar as its currency. Will this help bolster the dollar worldwide?
Well, first of all, they haven't actually done that. They've talked about it under the new president, who is really trying to change things pretty drastically. But he has sort of slowed down because inflation is very, very high. He is going to slowly work into the dollar, and it's not going to do it right away. And Argentina, unfortunately, is not a great, strong economy, so I don't think it'll have a great effect.
Okay. And in our last minute, this will be a test. If you can tell us in 1 minute, how can we save the coal industry in Pennsylvania? Is there a way to do it?
Well, first of all, as we push, I don't know if you realize, the coal industry in Pennsylvania is primary anthracite, which is primarily used, or most efficiently used, in the making of steel. Well, therefore, I guess the answer is, do we want to stave our steel companies? Now, right now, U.S. Steel, our last major steel company, that is in the process of being sold to the Japanese. Now, there's a question mark, is that going to be stopped or not? But the thing is that we, as a country, have been making less steel. So therefore, if you're going to save the coal industry of Pennsylvania, you have to save the steel industry of the United States.
Okay, we want to thank you. And this is a good note to stop on. And we want to thank all of you for tuning in and watching the show and being here for the Arnold Report. Please send your questions in for Mr. Arnold, and we'll be back with you next time on Behind the Headlines. See you then.